It's been 301 days since the Rangers won the World Series. So why the heck has Chris Young still not gotten a contract extension? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the growingly worrying situation about Chris Young's free agency at the end of the season and Jacob deGrom's most recent fantastic, but maybe a little bit too fantastic rehab start, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, let's get into the Jacob deGrom rehab before we get into Chris Young's contract situation. I don't have a whole lot of analysis for the 4 pitches that were thrown last night in the Rangers-White Sox game before it got suspended, which I believe is a record for the fastest into a game that it has ever been suspended. The starting pitchers will be the same in both the games today, the doubleheader. Andrew Heaney will be starting in Game 1. I don't think the Rangers will miss Garrett Crochet, even though he threw 4 pitches last night. If the game resumed, I think they would have missed out on him. Maybe they would have also had to throw a bullpen day, but that is not what we are talking about today. We're talking about Jacob deGrom coming back maybe as soon as in just a couple weeks, because last night he threw his second rehab outing. It was fewer pitches than the first time out, scheduled for 2 innings, 40 pitches worth of work in this one. His last start, he was scheduled for 2 innings, 30 pitches of work. I don't know why they thought he would throw 10 more pitches in 2 innings of work, jumping up a level, because Jacob deGrom is pretty much just as much, maybe not just as much, but about as more dominant than AA hitters as he is than AAA hitters. It is just stratospheres and leagues, miles, fathoms above what those hitters are accustomed to seeing, because no one is accustomed to seeing someone as good as Jacob deGrom, not even really major leaguers. Last night he threw 2 perfect innings, got a couple of strikeouts, just looked as nasty as Jacob deGrom looks. And you go and look at the Baseball Savant page, because thankfully there's TrackMan data for AAA, which there isn't in AA, so we have a better picture of what pitches he was throwing and how often, which we didn't have in AA. We didn't get an exact count on the changeups. And the fun thing about his slider and his changeup is that they're so good. They're so good that initially StatCast mislabeled the slider and the changeup because he throws them so hard and so much harder than most people do that they thought, oh, surely he's not going out there and throwing a slider in the 90s, or this is the movement on it. It confused, it broke StatCast for a minute, and it labeled his slider a cutter and his changeup, which is so stupid good, and I feel like I never really appreciated how good his changeup is, because his slider and his fastball are probably the best fastball and slider in Major League Baseball. The changeup broke StatCast as well and was labeled as a sinker because they thought, no way this type of pitch with this kind of movement and velocity is a changeup. Well, it is, and it was, and he was absolutely unbeatable for those 24 pitches and 2 innings of work. But he still went into the bullpen after the game. I thought they would be doing, 3 up and downs, 3 innings, around 45 innings of work for this start out. But it was on, I believe, 4 or 5 days, whatever normal rest is for a Major League Baseball season when there is no off day. So he instead went to the bullpen to throw 10 to 15 more pitches. I don't know why we don't know exactly how many pitches he was throwing there. But the point is, he's built up to about 40-ish, 35 to 40 pitches right now. So he will have, I believe, one more rehab outing where he will throw surely 3 innings. Surely they're not going to schedule him for 2 innings again to try and throw 40 to 50 pitches in that next time out. And that will be either on Sunday, which if it's on Sunday, it will be back in Round Rock again, or if it's on Tuesday, because the minor leagues don't play on Monday, because Monday would be probably an ideal time for him to start. But if it's on Sunday, it'll be in Round Rock. If it's on Tuesday, Round Rock will be, I believe, on the road, but I know that Frisco will be back home. So if that is the case, if it is on next Tuesday, 6 days from now, then Jacob deGrom will be back in Frisco. So if you live in DFW, you will be able to go see Jacob deGrom again. Before, he could rejoin the team during that series against the Angels, September 5th through the 8th, which would be incredible and a little bit ahead of schedule, which would be also very fun because instead of making his season big league debut against the White Hawk Diamondbacks, which was initially the plan, was the 10th or 11th, which is in Arizona on the road against a very, very, very hot offense. Instead, he would get to do it at home against the Angels in front of Rangers fans, which I know is not, the main point of it, but still, if he's only going to have 3, 4, maybe 5 starts, we'll see when exactly all of this goes down. If he continues on this pattern, rehabs on Sunday in Round Rock, then normal rest would be, I believe, Friday at that point. So that would be the 6th. Then normal rest there would be one of those games in Seattle, so that's 2. Then a game against the Blue Jays, that's 3. Then another game against Seattle at home, that's 4. Then one more start on that final road trip to Oakland and to Anaheim. So that's 5, assuming my math is correct and I didn't just forget what I said literally 3 seconds after I said it. But assuming my numbers are correct there, which, again, you got to take all of this with a grain of salt, see how he feels, see how he recovers, and all of that good stuff. But on that kind of calendar, we might get 5 deGrom starts. So every single one of them extra that we get at home would be a nice joy, a nice thing a reason to want to go out to the ballpark for the end of a season that has been honestly pretty brutal and frustrating. Watching Jacob deGrom at the major league level against major league hitters, making them look stupid, even though for the first couple of those starts, he will be rehabbing at the big league level. He won't be fully 100%. And, he talked about his fastball command not being where he wanted to after that first start. The other stuff was still getting refined. The slider looked, pretty much up to code, up to the normal Jacob deGrom standard. Same with the changeup. Wasn't quite there. He had one changeup that he just spiked in the dirt. But because he's so dang good, even him rehabbing at the big league level, you may be thinking, why are they pushing him? Why not just shut him down for the season? That's not how rehab works. That's not how elbow injuries work. You got to rehab them until they're fully rehabbed, until the healing is healed and everything is back to normal. And then you go about your normal off-season process. Now, I get not wanting to push him and not wanting to, be too aggressive with this assignment. And, it might seem like that from the outside that they're being too aggressive. Oh, he's rehabbing at the big league level. Well, there's really not that much difference in the amount of stress and the, danger of him tweaking something and, not being fully recovered, of throwing pitches on a big league mound versus a AAA mound or a AA mound. The stress is with the throwing pitches. The danger is with the throwing pitches, but that's what you have to do to get back up. So, no, they're not going to shut him down for the year, no matter how bad the major league team gets. Yes, it might seem like, it's like they're being too aggressive with, putting him on a big league mound, but the restrictions on the pitch count are still going to be there. They're actually probably going to have more data on him and how every pitch is looking, how every body movement, everything is happening on a big league mound than they would in AAA or double A. So if there is something even the slightest bit off, they'll probably be able to know it faster on a big league mound. And also, he still looks just as good as ever. So seeing him make AAA and AA hitters look stupid is fun. But then when you see him do it again to big league hitters, which he will be doing when he comes back up to the big leagues, it's hilarious. If his starts are as I think, he'll have a start against the Angels, not a good offense. Next start against the Mariners, truly horrendous offense. Then probably another start against the Blue Jays, who fine offense. Then 2 against the Mariners, then 1 more against either the Angels or the A's. That is going to be very, very fun to watch. Just getting him back on a mound, not only just for his mentality, not only just for the physically doing it, but the mentality of, okay, I'm back. I'm healthy. I can go into the normal offseason like normal, get ready for next season, hopefully be healthy all of spring training. Hopefully we don't have to do the same thing that we did in spring training his first year here of, okay, let's worry about every single little everything that's happening with deGrom. He can just have a normal spring training, hopefully a normal full season where he is mostly healthy, and then we go from there in 2025. But that's kind of where we are with that process. That is the thinking behind the Jacob deGrom process. Obviously, everything he does is going to be under the biggest microscope. We'll wait to see how he feels today after the Beats talk to everybody around the Rangers organization. We'll know a little bit more of his recovery today, and then probably in the next couple of days we'll know whether he's starting on Sunday or on Tuesday, and then when he comes to the big leagues we will know after that. But all is well with Jacob deGrom. He looks very much like Jacob deGrom, and I am very excited to stop talking about the rehabbing of the Rangers ace Jacob deGrom and start talking about the dominating big league hitters of ace Jacob deGrom. Coming up, we're talking about Chris Young being a free agent at the end of this year. Is it time to start getting worried? I think it just might be. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends. Become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive your $50 bonus because it is guaranteed. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because, like I said, it's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. The Rangers take on the White Sox twice today. First game will be resuming at 4:10 p.m. Central Time. Garrett Crochet versus Andrew Keeney, and you can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, this is a topic that hasn't gotten a lot of, noticed, a lot of conversation, but it's been something that's been weighing on my mind for, really all of this season, but it kind of picked up a little bit more of me realizing, this still isn't a thing. When Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News wrote about it in his I don't know, weekly, monthly or so mailbag column of Evan Help Us. Someone wrote into him asking about why Chris Young hasn't been extended. His contract is up at the end of this year, and the Rangers have a lot of pending free agents at the end of this year. A lot of pretty big, pretty good names. Max Scherzer, not great this year, and I'm growing increasingly skeptical that he throws another pitch for the Texas Rangers this year or likely ever, if not throws another pitch in Major League Baseball in general. Kirby Yates has been phenomenal this season, and I hope the Rangers bring him back. David Robertson has a mutual option. Jose Leclerc is going to be a unrestricted free agent. You already know about Nathan Eovaldi and his $20 million player option that he's probably going to decline and become a free agent. Also Andrew Heaney. But there is no bigger free agent on this Texas Ranger squad than Christopher freaking Young. See why. Headman in charge. Been headman in charge for a hot minute. Was joined the Rangers organization on December 4th, 2020, after a couple years in the Major League Baseball front office. He was then put in charge of everything of the Rangers baseball operations after spending a couple years, let's see if my math is mathing, 20 months and 13 days under John Daniels as the president of baseball operations before Chris Young was promoted to head man in charge, big decision maker of the Rangers on August 17th, 2022. Now, the thing that Evan wrote, you can go back and read his column, and I recommend you do, because he does a great job and provides a little bit more insight than I can, has a little bit better finger on the pulse than I do. But the thing that he wrote about answering this question of why has Chris Young not been extended just yet, he wrote a little bit more, but the quote I think that is kind of telling and kind of how I'm feeling at this point is, quote, "Ultimately, I think Davis still gets there. I believe Young wants to stay. I put the chances of Young remaining at greater than 50%, but it slips a little bit more each day as more clubs get closer to making decisions about their own GMs and word spreads of potential openings," end quote. Now, it has been, I believe, 13 days. Yes, 13 days, almost 2 weeks since Evan wrote this. And so each day I've been getting a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more nervous. Because Chris Young, he may not be a perfect GM, but he is a darn good one. And he is, I believe, pretty darn perfect for what the Rangers are doing. And while he may not be the best GM in all of Major League Baseball, every decision he makes, it's not going to be perfect, though that's true for quite literally every front office member, every person on the earth. He has done a really darn good job since being in Texas, and the fact that he won a World Series, your first World Series in franchise history, that should earn him a lot of leadway. A lot of leadway. A lot of good grace, a lot of, benefit of the doubt. He has earned that. Now, was the Rangers winning the 2023 World Series all because Chris Young made every single perfect decision that he could during the 2023 season? Absolutely not. Did he help? Yes. Did he help in a big, big way, making mostly very good, thoughtful, strategic decisions? Oh, absolutely, he did. I mean, there are so few GMs that have won a World Series that are still active, which might be a conversation for another day. But let's look at the presidents of baseball operations / GMs, basically whoever's the head decision maker in charge of the front office, of those guys who have won a World Series and are still with their current team. Because there's only 5 of them. Yeah, you heard me right. There are only 5 active Pobos / GMs that have won a World Series with their current team. Heck, I think you can extend that to saying 5 Pobos / GMs that have won a World Series ever. And they are Alex Anthopoulos, who was hired back in 2017 with the Braves. He has won 1. He is very smart. He has done a lot of things very, very well. He has won one World Series, which is just as many as Chris Young. You also have Brian Cashman, who, of this group, has won the most. And I'm pretty darn sure he is the longest tenured GM in all of Major League Baseball because he was hired back in February of 1998. So he has won, if my math is correct, 4 World Series titles, including 3 in his first 4 years of being a Major League GM. He last won one in 2009, so it's been a hot minute. It's also been a hot minute since the Yankees have even been to the ALCS, but he has won multiple World Series titles and overall led them to pretty darn good seasons. And I'm pretty sure, 1998, they have always had a winning record under his tenure, made the playoffs far more often than they haven't, and he's won 4 freaking World Series. It's a pretty darn good GM. Mike Rizzo, next one I want to talk about. He has won 1 World Series. He is the GM of the Washington Nationals. He has also been extended for quite some time. His 2019 World Series with the Nationals was, a good culmination of a lot of work that he had been doing since he was taking over in 2009. The only other guy besides Chris Young to win a title as the head baseball man in charge of the front office is Andrew Friedman of the Dodgers, president of baseball operations, and been in charge with the Dodgers since 2015. He has been to several World Series. He has signed a lot of fantastic free agents. He has developed players a lot. He has won 1 World Series title. Same as Chris Young. That's it. And the fact that Chris Young, no, we'll give it just a second. Let that sink in. Of all these guys, only one of them has won more World Series titles as a head baseball person in charge than Chris Young. And that's the guy who's been there since 1998. He hasn't won one since 2009. That is 15 years. There are going to be some international prospects that sign next year who have not been alive for a Yankees World Series title. That's the only other active GM that has more titles than Chris Young. So, just put that on your thinking hat and stew on it while we talk about why it's such a bad look that he hasn't already gotten an extension, and the longer this goes on, the more worried I get, and why that is, right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. Find all your favorite flavors on their website, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. It's always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free as well. So no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. This show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best way to get tickets to all the live events that you want to go to. If you're looking to get to a Jacob deGrom start later on this year, I know that I am. I still haven't seen him pitch in person for the Texas Rangers, something that I very much want to do. If you want to get tickets to that, Game Time is the best place to get those tickets. They've got Game Time Picks, a new curation that makes it easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They've also got all-in pricing, and toggling this feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can also see panoramic views from your seat in the app so you know exactly what it looks like before you buy. Game Time's also got the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, the Rangers have had 301 days since they won the World Series. And the fact that it's taken this long and Chris Young still does not have a contract extension is just an absolutely horrible look for the organization. This is a guy who came up with the Rangers, made his major league debut with the Rangers, came back, his first GM job, first baseball front office job outside of with the league. His first front office job with a team is with the Texas Rangers. He leads them to the promised land, wins their first ever championship, and just not extending him immediately after that was where the first black eye for this organization popped up. This is something that I have to think gets done. There's no way it cannot get done of at least a 2-year extension offer. There's no way that isn't the bare minimum of what happens, and it needs to happen like now. And according to Evan Grant in his column, he said it's going to cost Ray Davis, because he has waited this long, because the price for GMs has gone up. He says around $5 million is the price of what he thinks it'll take to sign Chris Young long term. And are you kidding me? $5 million is the difference between extending your hometown kid who grew up here, wants to be here, is about as Texas boy as you can get, won you your first ever championship. He's done a great job so far. Made some mistakes. But $5 million? I looked it up on SpotTrack. And you know what $5 million gets you? The 254th most expensive MLB player this season. As a tie for several players, including Andrew McCutchen, Clayton Kershaw, Gregory Soto, Joey Gallo, Keenan Middleton, Michael Harris, and Will Smith. No, not the good Will Smith. The 3-time World Series champion, Will Smith, with the Kansas City Royals. Are you kidding me? You are haggling over $5 million? Maybe he's asking for $6 million or $7 million. If that's the case, let's go 7. Let's see what a $7 million player is in the major leagues this year. That is the 204th most expensive salary in Major League Baseball, tied with Devin Williams, Ha-Sung Kim, Brian Hayes, James Paxton, Max Stassi, Ozzie Albies, which is an absolute steal for Ozzie Albies, Pierce Johnson, Tommy Edman, Trevor Williams, Wade Miley. That is what's holding you back? Why are you waiting? Why are you waiting? You are never beating the broke boy allegations if you let Chris Young walk. If you let Chris Young walk, and someone else will take him in a heartbeat. I guarantee you at least 25 other organizations think this guy is definitely better than what we've got. We would bring him on in a heartbeat for $5 million or $7 million or heck, maybe even $8. Maybe I'm pushing it with 8. But still, this is just such a bad look for your team. Now, success is defined differently for different GMs in different markets and different teams. But let's look at what that success might look like. Does it look like winning championships or championship? Check a frickin' Rooney. He's done it. He's done the most important thing in your franchise's history. That alone should have gotten him at least a 3, 4, 5-year extension the day after the World Series, 300 days ago. If it's spending within the margins that you give him, whatever budget that he's got, not going outside of it, not putting you way above into the luxury tax, into the Cohen zone, well, he's done that. Coming off of a World Series championship, he brings in a couple of pretty darn good relievers, Kirby Yates, David Robertson. Fantastic deals. Those very much worked out. Tyler Mahle, he signs on a probably undervalued deal if Tyler Mahle is healthy the whole time. He hasn't been, and he hasn't provided that much value, but I think next year that's really going to look like a smart move. He brought in Bruce Bochy, He helped recruit Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. He helped the Rangers sign the two biggest free agents in their franchise's history, not much after being there in the room. Now, granted, John Daniels was still in charge at the time the Rangers signed Seager and Semyon, but he did that. In terms of building the farm system, well, he helped draft Wyatt Langford. Not that that was, a very difficult decision for him, but he did still draft Wyatt Langford, who hasn't had the best rookie year, but still is already in the major leagues and has a very promising future ahead of him. Also, helped draft Kumar Rocker, who is looking absolutely fantastic. Alejandro Rosario, taking big leaps forward. Help with Jack Leiter, who is going to be making his fourth MLB start tonight in the second game of the doubleheader. The Rangers have made significant progress in their minor league pitching development this year. It hasn't translated just yet to the major league level, but it's probably not that far away. And there are some good signs for how the Rangers have done in terms of their development. And then you look at trades. And for the most part, he has knocked the trades out of the park. The trades that he made, the Rangers do not win the World Series. Heck, they probably don't even make the playoffs if he doesn't make those very aggressive trades that, in hindsight, almost all of them look fantastic. And even the one that doesn't, you still won the freaking World Series, so you can't be too mad about it, even though I still find a way to be, because you trade away an ace, a future young, controllable lefty ace, and it's hard for that to sit right even with a World Series champion. But still, Scherzer helped them get to the playoffs, helped them win in the playoffs. Those 3 innings in Game 3 of the World Series were important. Aroldis Chapman, for all I bash him for, helped the Rangers win the World Series. They don't win the World Series without him. Their bullpen was in dire straits when they got him, and he helped kind of stabilize that, and then unstabilize it, then stabilize it again in October. Jordan Montgomery, absolutely massive win in terms of the trade. So JC has kind of forgotten how to hit this year in AAA. I haven't looked up too much of what Tekoa Roby is doing, but unless he's also turned into Cole Reagans, and even if he has, more power to him. But the Rangers do not win that World Series without Jordan Montgomery. They absolutely don't get there. And I don't know if you've seen what Jordan Montgomery has been doing this year for a pretty hefty contract, not as hefty as I think he should have signed, and rightly fired Scott Boras as his agent this year. But the Rangers have made pretty much all the right moves with him in charge, for the most part. But still, you look at the whole of his accomplishments, what he means to this organization, what he means to this town in general, delivering the first championship to DFW of a major sports team. Sorry to the esports teams that won Call of Duty League titles, but the first major championship in 12 years. That is absolutely worth the $5 million or $6, $7, $10 million asking price. I know it's easy for me to say without my checkbook being at stake, but if I had that checkbook, I would have signed Chris Young the minute after he hoisted that World Series. I would have gone to a back room and said, lifetime freaking contract. But I'm not a businessman like Ray Davis. At the very least, I would have said 2, 3, 4-year extensions. So we're not sitting here in August. Despite a frustrating season, the Rangers do still have a bright future ahead of them. They do look to compete in 2025 and beyond. And the fact that this man is still not signed, even if it takes like a couple weeks into free agency, those are critical moments where you will have nobody at the helm, or at least not the man that helped finish off a World Series championship. This is just a bad look for the organization. It needs to have been done 300 days ago. It needs to be done by the end of this season, because with every single day that passes without Chris Young having a contract extension, I get more worried, and it looks even more embarrassing for the reigning World Series champs. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.